All right, so this is my current pedal board, and if you're wanting a video that's going to be talking about John Mayer's gear and things like that, you can just wait till the next episode on the channel comes out. But today I wanted to talk about my own personal board a little bit and just speak out, I guess, into existence the plan that I have for it for 2025. I was wanting to upgrade my pedal board and actually make it a lot more functional and exciting last year, and it just never happened. So I thought if I make a video talking about my plan and sharing it with you guys, because some of you guys are curious as to what I personally am kind of doing it with my own gear journey and things like that. If I actually make a video on it, that'll kind of make me commit to actually building a really crazy pedal board this year. So we're going to dive on into everything. I'm going to talk about kind of the way the board currently stands, and then I actually have some kind of mock-ups done in Photoshop of to what I kind of want the board to look like, and a bunch of cool additions that I want to acquire over the year. So just to quickly run down my pedal board for you guys here, it starts off, I have a TC Electronics Polytune 3 into a version 1 Keeley Katana, then the Keeley modded Blues Driver, followed by my TS10. Then I have the Dumble style Herculean by Mythos. That was kind of a pedal I'd always wanted, and then when I was down in Los Angeles visiting some family, I walked into True Tone Music and they just had one there. I was like, perfect. So that's kind of taken on the higher gain, almost Dumble-esque tones in my rig, kind of if you think of John Mayer's third overdrive. In concept, that's what the Dumble style Herculean is actually doing, and it's a really great pedal. Then I have the Thorpe Effects Chris Buck Signature Electric Lighting, my current favorite pedal. It's just brilliant. Then we have the Thorpe Deep Ogden for my chorus needs, the Providence Chrono Delay, followed by the Way Huge Octopus. This one's a Mark 1 AP2 version, the Providence Delay 80s, Strymon Flint, and then out to my amps. And then I split in between my 64 Vibroverb and my 2-Rock traditional clean, running both just amps, always on, everything through them, like dual mono, I guess what it would be. So just to give you guys a bit of context with my goals for this pedal board this year, this is a John Mayer focused channel. This is, kind of John is the main influence that I talk about, and clearly my overall biggest influence. And in the past, I've made full-on replicas of his 2019 World Tour pedal board. I've done the Sawbrock board as well. I still would like to do a John Mayer Trio replica board at some point, just as a little grab and go, super small, kind of cool pedal board. I think that would just be fun to have, just a small replica of that, because it's only 5 pedals. But when it comes to my own pedal board, I've done the whole replicating John's board thing. It was a lot of fun as a technical exercise. I really just enjoyed the process of doing it and acquiring everything and actually like wiring it all up and having that there to mess around with. But when it comes to my own pedal board, that's not what I actually want. I want pedals that interest me. I want things to create sounds. I want to take inspiration from other artists and other sounds that I'm really into, not just John's thing. It's kind of funny. A lot of people who see my channel think all I care about is John Mayer, and that's, my one kind of just super verticalized into John's tone. And it's like, do you guys not see the Chris Shiflett Telecaster behind me, or the gold 1971 vintage Les Paul Deluxe behind me? The Marshall. It's like, come on, of course, like anyone with a brain, John's not my only influence, but that's what people seem to think. So I think it's kind of funny, but just to state the fact that it's not my only influence, I want to create sounds and, play along to tracks and other guitarists and bands and, the whole kind of 9 yards that, are other songs that I really do love and enjoy. So that's kind of the overall goal, is to get this board to the point where I'm really creating a lot of sounds that I've been wanting to for a while, but just have been putting off, and really expand the gear into a lot of other influences and things that I just think are cool as well. So with that said, this board on the surface might seem to cover a lot of ground the way it is currently set up, but for me, I'm not happy with it at all, and I want to make, quite honestly, a lot of drastic changes to this pedal board. The first thing that I want to do is actually get a different physical pedal board. Like I said, I've done the whole replicating John Mayer's 2019 and Sawbrock board. I loved having a massive spaceship pedal board with 3 rows on it. I thought that was really cool, and I don't mind, like, I've carried it around out of my house before. Like, I don't mind moving it around. Like, it's not that big of a deal to me personally. But the one I'm using right now is from V Boutique, and the quality of the pedal board is fantastic. However, the dimensions I've just always thought were kind of dumb. Like, you guys can clearly see, there is more than enough space for the 2 rows that I have, but there is not enough space to have a clean 3 rows of pedals on the actual board part of the board, if that makes sense. Like the outline border is part of the actual edges and like, you know, the actual sides of the board, so you don't really want to place things on that. So the dimensions of this one I always thought were weird. I've never been the biggest fan of it, so I just need to find a board that actually will fit 3 clean rows of pedals comfortably on and be a bit bigger, that I can incorporate some larger pedals, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. Interestingly enough, the Gig Rig actually came out with a new pedal board. Their dimensions, I almost think for me, might be a little too small and not quite narrow enough. The only other thing too about the Gig Rig board that came out, because when I first saw that they had just launched the other day these boards, I was like, oh, that's fantastic. That could be, you know, a nice viable option. They're very expensive. They are very expensive. Still an option, but at this point, I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm not sure exactly if it is that much of an option that I'm wanting to personally spend, because I just feel like for a pedal board, it is starting to get, you know, like think of like Schmidt Array. Like when they get to those prices, it's kind of like, okay, I get why there's a lot of technical, you know, beauty and elegance in the features of them, but at the same point, I'm kind of like, do I really need everything it has? So the Gig Rig board, I think, is really great. It's an option I'm considering, but as well the dimensions, I'm not sure if they will quite work for me, as it's really designed to go with a switcher mainly, and I'd love a G3 eventually, but for right now, I'm just kind of happy with the traditional pedalboard setup. So Gig Rig pedalboard is an option, but I'm not 100% sure. The other one is the Gentleman by Caseman. Now, this pedalboard is a lot cheaper than the Gig Rig version, and it kind of comes in the exact layout that I'm wanting. I'm thinking the extra large Gentleman would be the one that I would go for. You can get them with like flight cases and everything too, but I discovered these guys because this is the company that Joey Landreth is using with his like really big pedal boards that he's been touring with, and they've even on the website you can see how they have like the custom Bros Landreth, you know, kind of engraved into the wood sidings of the boards. I think they're really nice looking. The dimensions and everything, I think for the extra large one is perfect. And as well, they're definitely a lot more, you know, they're still expensive, but you're not like getting into like Schmidt Array prices for boards. Like Schmidt Array is also a brand I considered, but I was like, I'm not 100% sure that that's what I also want. I kind of like just the aesthetic of just a more simple angled board like this, I think is more kind of what I am looking for. So that's something I have to figure out. If you guys have any other board suggestions, let me know in the comments down below. So with the plan to get a bigger physical pedal board that can accommodate 3 rows, similar to what John has been using, but you know, obviously with my own pedals I want and kind of set up the more kind of way I want. What I always love to do, and I have a lot of fun doing, is going onto Photoshop and actually just building my own board kind of in Photoshop. I find that just using Photoshop works better for me, instead of like, there's the one online tool where you can build your own pedal board, but just Photoshop I've just always found a little bit easier to use, and I can just really customize it and mess around with it a little bit more that way. So I built kind of a mock of a rough plan, or kind of where my brain is at right now with my board, that I'll run through you guys with kind of where I'm going. So one of my biggest influences that I don't talk about on the channel at all is actually the Edge. I've always been a really big fan of U2's sound in terms of the guitar tones, like the way the Edge uses delays. I think it's brilliant. I think he's so smart in everything he's done. You think of like a song like Elevation or Mysterious Ways, those 2 songs, the way he uses effects to really create the music, I just always thought was really cool. It's not quite worship guitar. I'm not a fan of worship guitar at all personally, but it's, you know, that kind of sound is very, you know, I'd say like it's adjacent to kind of the whole worship guitar sound. So for me, the Edge has always been a really big influence, and I think that's also why I really love a lot of Coldplay's earlier stuff. What Johnny Buckland was doing, like on Parachutes, X and Y, very, I think, Edge inspired in terms of the tones and the way the melodies of the guitar are written to, you know, really fit the song. They're not super flashy, but I think they're smart and they sound really good. So kind of the first pedal I'm looking to place on the board, and kind of the first new acquisition in terms of pedals, would be the JHS Clover, because this is a faithful recreation of the Boss FA1 that the Edge has used in his rig forever. They're very expensive, but Josh Scott built this one, very inspired, you know, the Clover, even, you know, Irish themed. It's a 1-to-1 of an FA1, but then it has extra options and also has a foot switch, which is a lot easier to use and actually like it's more pedalboard friendly. So I think that would be kind of cool, just to experiment with a different style of preamp pedal on my board. And that's one I've always wanted to try. So that's kind of the first thing I want to acquire in terms of new pedals. Then for me, I'm definitely keeping the Keeley Katana as a pure clean boost. I absolutely love that pedal. I want to get another one of those actually as a backup for another V1, but keep using the V1 Keeley Katana. That is certainly the plan. Now, in terms of the more kind of drive pedal system here and setup that I want to have, the King of Tone is one that I am 100% going to get and throw on my board. My name's been up for over a year. Like, it was like November of 2023 is when my name on the waiting list got I got the email, you can order one, and then I still just haven't yet. So I got to order a King of Tone. I'm going to throw that on the pedal board there. I think it covers the John Mayer kind of earlier tones really well. I'm expecting it to at least. Plus, Chris Buck, another huge influence of mine, has used the King of Tone for just a ton of stuff. And I think, you know, it's going to cover a lot of cool ground using that pedal. And that's kind of the plan for the first main kind of drive section. And then I'm going to have the TS10. Still a big Mayer fan, gotta have a tube screamer of some sort, so the TS10 is still gonna stay on the pedal board, along with the Thorpe Electric Lightning. That one just covers a lot of ground in terms of the tones that pedal can also recreate. So I think between those three, the King of Tone, the TS10, and the Electric Lightning, that gives me a lot of versatility and options. However, where this kind of gap is on the board, and keep in mind, I haven't fully done this to scale. This is just me rough ballparking in my mind of what it would look like. I'd actually have to, you know, sort out the measurements with some things and make sure everything would fit depending on what physical board I want. But this is just kind of in an ideal world, if I could customize everything, how it would kind of look, and trying to keep the pedals all relatively within scale in Photoshop here at least. But the space here that you see after the Electric Lightning, this I figured could be either one or two pedals that live in a revolving kind of extra overdrive slot or two, like Johnny Buckland with Coldplay, a really big rat user. So a white-face rat reissue is kind of the one I'm looking at and needing to get to cover some rat tones. I've always wanted a rat actually, and I think, you know, I want to bite the bullet and get one. And
so anyway, I saw this video. I love this record. People do not give it a chance, and the older it gets, the better it gets, and the more people don't give it a chance. It's Coldplay Parachutes.
yes.
So Coldplay Parachutes, Johnny Buckland, amazing guitarist, and he uses thin line tellies usually with humbuggies. I said it. But you know, their backline's amazing. Well, their setup is just like Fender DeVille's, like 410 DeVille's. I used a 410 DeVille for like 4 years out of flight case
because he did it.
Yeah, because the clean sound's amazing.
Yep.
410s, massive wattage, and he had a DL4. So I'm going to use a setting kind of. Again, there's no way to properly play this song. We're missing the acoustics and stuff, but his dirt tone is a rat. Now on this song, tracked, it's probably just the amps, but I don't know. And I know that he used it really low gain a lot. And then I know on later albums, like you hear a song on Viva La Vida called Silent Hill. What's the Silent Hill's a movie? Violet Hill. Yeah, that's like heavier distortion where you see the rat like executed in a different way. But yeah, I'm just going to use it as another clean ambient sound that you really don't think about with the rat. So this is a song called Don't Panic. This came out in 2000, and it starts with these acoustics, and then it really just has these really wonderful delayed lines in it that I love. I'm going to use a setting like... So that's the clean tone. Here's the rat tone. That was anticlimactic. Hold on. There's like a fine, like you have to adjust this. A little bit.
Just a little.
Always making excuses.
Up there, you really...
That's a rat?
That's a rat.
Whoa.
just experiment with how that sounds through the amps that I have. And even, the Shins Music Dumb Blade B, I've talked about John Mayer's own third kind of overdrive setup. That's a pedal I've wanted as well to throw on the board. It just gives me some options to have maybe a rotating spot of different drive pedals and experiment with, and then I could kind of change up how it's wired if I wanted to, and have the space to shuffle things around a little bit if needed on that front row. But that's kind of the intention with that extra space there, would be just for a pedal that I want to kind of experiment with or add in. If I wanted another Klon style pedal, even, I could throw it in there, because I always prefer Tube Screamer into Klon Centaur for the Mayer thing, so the Klon could easily fit in there as well. That's kind of my idea for the front row and the drives. But where my pedal board I think is really going to expand out and change a bit is where it's going to come to modulation and delays. Now, I mentioned I'm a huge fan of the Edge and his iconic delay sound and tones. A pedal I've always wanted is the Korg SDD 3000, the actual pedal version, because it's just a lot easier to use instead of the rack unit. Getting into rack gear, I feel like would be opening up a huge can of worms for me in terms of all the cool things you could get and do. Maybe eventually, because I believe it's the A3 the Edge used for the Mysterious Ways effect, and that is such a good song. I think it would just be so fun to be able to just replicate that and be able to jam out to that tune. But the SDD 3000 pedal is one that John Mayer also used with Dead & Company at the Spheres residency. So seeing John use that, I was like, oh, you're making me want that pedal even more. But kind of the point here is that I have the chrono delay from Providence. For what it kind of does, it's good. It's certainly a good pedal. For me, kind of my main issue that I'm having right now is a lot of songs that I'm playing along to or kind of jamming with other people, they require different delay settings that are very specific, and you need to be able to recall them easy, or else it's an absolute pain in the ass. Like Aurora, my favorite Foo Fighters song, has a very specific delay time, and I need it to set up exactly the way it needs to be with the mix, the actual tone of the repeats, the amount of repeats, the delay time. I all need to have that preset ready to go in order to jam out to Aurora. But then if I wanted to play Shiver by Coldplay, let's just say, that also has a very specific delay that Johnny Buckland used. And the chrono delay only saves in the presets the delay time. It doesn't save the rest of the settings, which I thought it did. And so when I actually went to try and set up, okay, like let's get maybe Aurora set up and set up whatever else, like Where the Streets Have No Name, for example, it only saves the delay time. So that to me is useless. Yeah, so the chrono delay really fails in that standpoint, actually. For just being a small, kind of easy-to-use delay with a really accurate tap tempo and a screen, it's great. But for something, a bit more and more flexibility, it falls short. So I'm planning on fully ditching the chrono delay. Now, I'm also not 100% sold on the SDD 3000. I got to do a lot of research and kind of sort out what I want, because it's a massive pedal. It is massive, and it's going to take up a lot of real estate space on my board. My friend Gabe Bergman, you guys all know Gabe if you're in the John Mayer community. He's been on me to get a Strymon Timeline for forever, and I just kind of think that's a boring choice, and it's been such an old pedal. There's lots of other kind of modern delays that do kind of everything really well, but he's going to be on me to get a Timeline. The Free the Tone Flight Time is another one that I've been considering as well. Trying to think what else in terms of delays that have been running through my head at the moment. The Donner Prince Boonar is one I've even been considering for some more tape sounds. The Tube Deluxe version of it is one that I really wish I got in on when they did that limited run last year, because that thing is brilliant, and now good luck getting one for a remotely reasonable price now that they're all sold out, right? So that's one I'm wanting. Even the Boss RE202 Space Echo, Chris Buck uses one. It sounds brilliant. And like the ramp function that he uses for Terra Firma before he launches into the solo, I always thought that just was so cool.
She said that she don't believe it. I'm going home. I'm going home.
And that's kind of the whole point of this board, is I just want to be able to have things on it that I think are cool and inspire me and I think are fun from just all these different inspirations. But the STD 3000, I think, is the one that my heart truly wants. And Dallas Shu, who is the just longtime guitar tech for like 35 years or something crazy like that, he had a hand in designing the pedal version as well with the Edge's sounds in mind. So I think everything's kind of pointing me to, at least for one of the delays on the board, being the STD 3000, and just the power requirements, the space, just, you know what, make it work, because it's kind of worth, in my opinion. But who knows, they're pretty hard to find, especially for a reasonable price as well. So that's probably something to just keep an eye on, and then maybe just pull the trigger one day. But because of the space that this pedal is going to take, I actually have it on the second row on the board too. You guys can see here, and that's also why I'm kind of talking about it next, because physically I think having it there on the second row would almost make the most sense, and then not having really anything above it potentially. We'll see, like the Polytune could be above it, or something I rarely need to step on could be kind of up above it. But I think having a pedal like that, where you're, you know, using a lot of different banks and presets and things like that, tap tempo, having it a little bit lower down on the board and a little bit closer would probably be the easiest thing to do. Next up, in terms of actual kind of effects, the Thorpe effects, the deep Ogden, that chorus is going to stay on the board. That's the one that Chris Buck has also kind of used a lot and said he likes the sound of the most. Like Where Did You Go by Cardinal Black is probably my favorite song of theirs. And that chorus, you know, it was on the entire time, and I've always loved the chorus effect. I've owned a CE2, CE1, lots of really great chorus pedals, but I wanted something that had a little bit more flexibility in its sounds, and, you know, you could tweak it a little bit more. The deep Ogden, I can't recommend enough. I absolutely love it. It's a really great sounding chorus pedal, so that's for sure staying.
Promise you'll go.
And at least on this mock-up, in between the deep Ogden and the STD 3000, I've placed probably a pretty surprising addition that I'm kind of curious to try out. The Boss Slow Gear. Now, the Slow Gear is a pedal that it kind of does, you know, that like fade in, that auto swell sort of thing. It's kind of one of the original ones, or the original one that did it. I'm not 100% sure, but when I think of, you know, the sounds that the Edge goes for, even Johnny Buckland with Coldplay, having something that just can kind of do that would be really cool. Now, Johnny Buckland uses the Line 6 DL4's auto swell function. He used it especially really heavily on a song called Square One off of X and Y. It's probably my current favorite Coldplay song. And before he launches into kind of like the more ratty, dirty style of guitar playing for like the chorus, the way it fades in and tracks on the DL4 especially, I think sounds so cool. So the slow gear is on here just because that's kind of the coolest version, I think, of that pedal. If you guys know anything that does the auto swell function really well, let me know in the comments down below. Gabe, I know the Timeline does it. I've seen some shootouts and comparisons actually where it doesn't track, it seems, at least as well as the DL4 does, or did, I guess, because it's the Mark II now, but I could still grab a Mark II. But I'm looking for something that can kind of do that. And if you guys have any recommendations, let me know in the comments down below. So the slow gear right now is kind of on there just to remind me that's a sound that I think I'd like to be able to experiment with, even for some kind of the organ things with where the streets have no name or something like that. You could probably utilize that to create some of those sounds, maybe. I don't know. Something cool to experiment with and at least try out for myself. Then, as far as other sounds that I'm wanting to do in delays, the Octopus, my Mark I, never leaving my board. That'll always be there for the slapback sort of thing. I just love using it a lot more, even out of the context of the Mayor thing. I have mine set even differently than the way John uses it, just because I like the way it sounds. The way I've set it a little bit differently, and you know, that's kind of how I like it. So I have my Octopus, I pretty much use it always on for that slap sound. Provenance Delay 80 is my favorite kind of TES style of delay. That for sure I'm keeping on the pedal board as well. For additional reverb and kind of like the shimmer thing and everything, I want just a more powerful reverb than the Strymon Flint. New Neighbor, in my opinion, has the best algorithms for reverb. I've tried Universal Audio, I've tried a lot of different companies, even Strymon, of course, I've tried a few of them. I personally just really like New Neighbor. I had an Illumin, sold it, but I want to get another one because I just love the screen functionality and everything. So Illumin for sure is going to be another addition to the board as well that I want to get back on and be kind of my all-in-one kind of reverb needs covered thing. So at least right now, this is kind of where my brain is at in terms of the direction that the board I want it to go. I also want something that is like a Shinai FY6 super fuzz sound, you know, like that I guess I just feel like kind of sort of solo tones I really love. So some sort of pedal that could do that is something I'd like to get on there as well. Maybe a JHS Supreme would be a really good option that Josh has built kind of to do that sound for. I guess I just feel like that's a sound I've always wanted to be able to replicate really well. So that's kind of something else I want. Phase and flange are other two kind of modulation effects I'd like to do, but I'm not sure exactly at this point where I'd go or how in the context I'd use it, but I'd like to have it available because I don't own anything currently that does phase, don't own anything currently that's a flanger as well, so maybe like the camouflage would be really cool. I always think of too like the Moog 102 is the 12-stage phaser. I owned one of those when I was really deep into the John Frusciante sounds, and that's one of the best phasers I've ever heard, and they're still not that expensive, I think. So if I'm having the STD 3000 on the board taking up a ton of space, maybe I could somehow work one of the Moogs into it, or even have it like underneath the board somehow, and then have just like a Keeley looper to activate it on the board a little bit easier, but still get the sounds out of it. It's kind of where my mind goes a little bit, because obviously I still love Frusciante as well. Even the SD1, John Frusciante is kind of using that for his lower overdrive sounds. The Edge also is a big user of the SD1. It's kind of like a tube screamer thing though. So I have a TS10, but maybe experiment with an SD1 as well to do something kind of in that vein. But those are kind of, at least right now, the pedals that I'm thinking of acquiring and buying, and where I kind of want the board to go at this point. And I think it's just fun too to make a video, document it, and sharing it with you guys as well, that I can look back on once I actually do this thing, because now that I'm speaking it into existence and talking to you guys about it. And I think too, it's a big project to undertake. There's lots of things I need to source and find, some rarer stuff. I need to do a lot of research, but guitar especially is something that I wasn't really doing a lot of, at least in 2024. It was a really crazy year for me with just, you know, things going on in my life. So the hobby definitely took a large back seat. A lot of my free time, honestly, was spent golfing. It's another rabbit hole of, you know, stuff I've gone down a lot in the past couple of years, trying to get that score as low as possible. But this, I think, is a project that'd be a lot of fun, but it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of research, a lot of energy to actually see through. But the idea as well is that completing this or working on it will get me more inspired and enjoying the hobby a lot more, and actually playing more, which, you know, at the end of the day, it's the goal. And that's the goal with the channel too, is to impart, you know, sharing you guys the passion and the hobby. And, you know, if deep diving into Mayer's gear gets you playing the guitar and enjoying the hobby, then, you know, that's amazing. That's fantastic. That's the way my mentality has always been with it, at least. So yeah, some of you guys really, like, you know, seemed interested in what I'm doing, and I love that. And, you know, if it's not for you, it's not for you. I expect you wouldn't be at this point in the video if it's not for you. But this is kind of just where my head is at, and sharing it with you guys, it's going to actually make me want to work on this thing and complete it by hopefully the end of the year, because it is going to be a bigger project and an evolving thing. But I'll be sure to update you guys if you want, at least, and let me know if you do in the comments down below. But yeah, just thought I'd make a video on it, and we'll see what happens this year. So if you stayed with me till the end, I appreciate you guys. Like I said, if you want me to keep you guys all kind of updated on where I'm at with things and stuff like that, and where I'm going, or share in the comments your guys' plans and things you're looking forward to switching around or doing, it'd be kind of cool just to connect with you guys a little bit more on that level, and kind of everyone's own gear journey, right? So take care, you guys. I'll see you on the next video.